Do you like donuts?
Yeah, sometimes. I'm a little offended by the question, but well, I think the reason I do figures more so than anything is because of the human aspect. Because I mean, we all see humans every day, and you can do machines, but it's kind of at the end of the day, it's still a piece of machinery. Whereas the figures is the human element of it, and I think that's what draws me to the actual figure parts. My very first model actually that I remember was like a Swedish called I think the translation is barrel, because the airplane had like a big hole in the front. But anyway, I built that, and then I didn't have any more models to build. And my brother had models. He had a like a German HE 111 or something like that. And I used to sneak in his bedroom when he after he went to bed and build it. Like he wouldn't realize there was a couple steps further on to build. So that's what I used to do. I guess he caught on because he went to a soccer tournament in Cyprus, and then he came back and he brought me some Tamiya figures. I think it was the German Grenadiers. I think it's Americans and ETO, something like that. So he must have gotten the clue. I built his figures or his model, and how could he not, right? I mean, he comes back a few days later and it's like, huh, I didn't do that, but it's done. So that's how it got started, like in the very beginning, and then it just kind of evolved. Yeah, I've been doing pretty consistently the whole time. There was a little break there for a while. So I grew up in Sweden, so when I moved over here, took a little bit of a break. But it really wasn't until I came to the U.S. that I got into figures exclusively. I tend to gravitate towards 1800s, 1700s, and then I kind of skip. I'm recently kind of getting a little bit interested in World War One, but I haven't really done anything. And also World War Two. That's kind of my original, if you will. That's kind of like my home point. But as far as figures goes, this is typically probably 17, 1800s. I have a bit of a weird philosophy, I guess, when it comes to simple figures. Like some people say, oh, a simple figure is it's much easier because it's just two colors. It's boring, right? Mm. Whereas I look at a simple figure like that is you can do a lot more with it because you can focus very specifically on those two different colors, and then you can make it interesting. That's your challenge. Whereas if you have a French hussar from the Napoleonic Wars with all the lace and everything, right? That's easy to make look nice and flashy because it's flashy. If you just paint by numbers, color in the right areas, now it's going to be, it's going to be a spectacular piece, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have a single color uniform that's all the same, you can make that, draw the viewer into that, right? Mm-hmm. Now that's kind of more of a challenge. When I started going to shows here in the U.S., like about around 2000, I guess. And Tulsa show was the first one. And then you start going to different shows in Tulsa, Atlanta, Chicago, MFCA, all these different shows, and you see all this great work. And I don't remember which show it was, but at some show, a collector came up to me and asked, "Hey, would you be willing to sell your work?" And I was like, I had no clue about anything because I didn't even know you could sell your stuff. So I said, sure, and we ended up making a deal, and they kind of started out that way. So at that point, it was just painting stuff that I already did, like what I was going to do for myself, and then somebody liked it enough to be willing to purchase it. And that kind of evolved into people asking me to do specific things. And it could be whatever it is. But I've been real fortunate in that in the commissions that I do accept or that I do is stuff that I want to do. And sometimes you can maybe start doing a different era that you've never done before. Now, of course, with commission works, it's kind of becomes like a job in a sense, because you had deadlines. You had to kind of cater to the customer, if you will. Most of the time, it's just like any other figure because I'm gonna probably do it anyways. So it's just kind of nice to have a home after it gets done, and somebody can appreciate it. You can be dragged like anything, right? I mean, if you get stuck somewhere and you have to get it done, you kind of have to work through that, I guess. You kind of want to do the best job that you can and give them what they're looking for. And I've learned that because recently I've started collecting a little bit myself, and I've actually commissioned people, some of my heroes, if you will, the people I look up to whose work I admire a lot. And that's what I want from them. Well, modeling obviously has evolved exponentially over the years, even in the short time that I've been in it. I mean, I guess I've almost been in it for 20 years, which is a little crazy to think. But even over that time, it's changed quite a bit because, first of all, you have internet, and the knowledge out there is just humongous. People can go on the online forums and they can search pretty much anything that they want to search, and they can learn how to do it. There definitely is a room for 3D printing. It has a very good place in the hobby, I think. From what I've seen now, like now it's just now starting to become The detail work is always very, very good because you can get really crisp details. But where I see it falling short as of right now is the posing, the body language. It just doesn't translate as well from a computer screen onto a little figure. I mean, I'm sure if you did a very animated figure, like a running figure, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But for me, that's the biggest shortfall of the 3D printing. But I also think that 3D printing would be excellent actually for weapons. I mean, weapons, anything mechanical, because you don't have that posting you have to worry about. Because you can do a weapon from a diagram or a scale chart or whatever it is, all that stuff right on the money. Oh yeah, helmets is like one of the hardest things to sculpt because it's such a specific shape. So anything that's mechanical, I think is, you know, I don't know if there's anything better for it. And if you're close to that idea, I mean, why? It's another tool, right? I mean, we got various putties. You're gonna use a certain putty for a certain thing. Why not use that as another tool? The process that I go through is, first of all, you're gonna determine what you're gonna do. So you just whatever it is that inspires you. If there's you read something that's really cool and you want to depict that, or it's a specific uniform you want to do, or it's a specific battle, or whatever it is that you do. I try to get as much information about the mostly the uniforms. I wish I could tell you that I read all about the historic part of it and know a whole. There's some people out there that are amazing, like they know every little detail about a battle they depict. Me, I typically focus more on the visual parts of it. Like I make sure that they get the uniforms right. I can make sure I get the whatever they were wearing, and kind of get some period feel for the look of the era. Because each era has a little bit of a different feel to it, and you kind of get that by studying it over a period of time, I guess. But once I got all the technical data, I guess you can call it, kind of have that figured out, then you start the conceptual uh, planning on what you want to do. Like if it's going to be a vignette, if it's going to be a single figure, what's it going to be doing. And at that point, I'll start doing a mannequin, which I use a resin, torso, and pelvis. And I use copper wire for the legs and the arms and the spine and the neck. Typically, I'll use a commercial head from Hornet. I might alter it, or it might be a different company, whatever. I typically try to use other heads. Then I'll play with the mannequin and pose it. And after it's posed, I'll clothe it, what I call fleshing it out, which is essentially making a naked body. But you have to make sure that you have all the joints in the right places and make sure your pose is good. Because if you don't have a good pose, your figure is probably not going to be good. Because you can't hide poor anatomy under excellent folds. It just doesn't work that way. And then, of course, once it's finished, just start painting it. And if it's ever done, I don't know. I think that's a that could be a trick question, all right? Because I mean, you can always work on something. So but at some point, you have to call it done. I mean, it's only so much you can do. Um, and I'm a big proponent of finishing stuff. A lot of people don't finish it. Like they start something and they get halfway done. Like I don't like that part. Whereas if before I always figure out, well, I can finish as long as I finish it, then I can do whatever I don't like on this piece and bring that to the next one. So I mean, it's not a quick fix. You're not going to have a perfect piece every time. But over time, you kind of develop an eye or techniques or whatever where you can do something at a reasonable amount of time and it still comes out pretty good. But you always finish it. So you'll have that in your head that there's no such thing as, I mean, you can always strip stuff, I guess. I mean, everybody's done that. But, you know, it's much better to just have the mentality to say, well, I'm going to finish it no matter what. And then what I don't like, I can change. And what I do like, I'm going to keep on the next one. For new people getting into the hobby, I mean, I would definitely recommend saying, look at as much figures as you can, or models, or whatever it is that you do, and get kind of overwhelmed with what's out there. See different techniques, and then also do as much as you can. Just get in there, start painting, start gluing stuff together. Just get with it, because without doing it, you're not going to learn how to. Because there's people all over the world who they're like armchair generals, right? They're like, you know, Todd, you should do this, you should do that, but they never do anything. I mean, what's the point of that? The whole point is for us to have fun, relax, do our little thing that we do, and get something out of it. Try something new. Always, with every new figure, challenge yourself. Do something good. Everybody hates painting shoes, so make it a challenge to paint the best shoe you possibly can, right? Because now it's a challenge. So now you have a goal. Now you have something to obtain. Because you're like, it's just a shoe. I'm just gonna, who even cares about the shoe? Well, if you paint every piece of the figure to the highest of standards, you're probably gonna have a pretty good piece. So if you just keep challenging yourself and do the things that for example, you think is boring or you're bad at, just challenge yourself and make it like a challenge, because that way you have like a goal to obtain. There's no such thing as you can't do it. I mean, I get that a lot. It's like, well, I just can't do it. It's like, well, I truly believe that everybody can do it. I mean, obviously, there's different people have different predispositions to, whether it be art or just technical skills or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can still, if you apply yourself, you can do it. Every time I do a seminar on sculpting, that's the first thing I say. I have a picture of a crying baby that says, "I can't do that." That's like, and my opinion is like, yes, of course you can. But if you just look at a finished figure that's sculpted, and you see that all you do is see the end product, yeah, it's gonna be intimidating. It's like, man, I can't do it. I have no clue. When I started, I had absolutely no idea how you started. Like, how do you even start? So I reached out to other people, and they told me how to do it. So I learned from that. But that's the very first thing I tell people. It's like, yes, you can sculpt, because it's just a matter of breaking it down into logical steps. And you don't climb the mountain first, right? You could take a first step. Per the stuff I want to achieve, I've been really fortunate in the stuff I have achieved already, as far as awards and all that stuff. But that's really secondary. But I think it'd be kind of cool to pass on knowledge, I guess, and just kind of share what you've learned, and hopefully maybe you can inspire somebody else to get into it and enjoy the hobby as much as I have.